Good morning, guys. In the last session, we discussed about how to use how to use JSP as a presentation technology in our Spring Boot application. So when you use JSP as a presentation technology, by default, that embedded server cannot understand the JSP because JSP is already outdated in the market. Boot also not supporting for the JSP directly. If at all you want to use JSP as a presentation technology, then you need to you need to add this dependency in the pom.xml, which is Tomcat embed Jasper. That dependency we need to get from MVN repository and we need to add in the pom.xml. What will happen if we don't add this dependency in the pom.xml, guys? Whenever you send a request, instead of rendering the JSP, it is downloading the JSP. Okay. After this, we need to configure view resolver in the properties file where our presentation files are available. What is the extension of the presentation? We need to configure here. So can I use both JSP and Thymeleaf in the single application? Can I use both JSP and Thymeleaf in the single application? Yes. First priority will go to Thymeleaf. So whatever the view that you are returning from your controller method, first it will check, is there any Thymeleaf page available with this name? If a Thymeleaf page available, it will render that Thymeleaf page. If Thymeleaf page is not available, then only it will check for the JSP page for that. Okay. We can use multiple presentation technologies in the single application. Next one, we discussed about actuators in the Spring Boot, right? What is the meaning of actuator? Actuators are used to get production ready features of our application. Actuators will help us in monitoring and managing our application. Once we develop and deploy our application to the client, doesn't mean that our task is completed. We need to check how our application is running in the production, what is health of the application, how many classes are loaded, what configurations are loaded, okay, how many threads are running, what is the thread dump, what is the heap dump. All this information we need to get by using actuators. Actuators are used to get production ready features of our application. They will help us in monitoring and managing our application. Good. So actuators are providing endpoints in order to access our application. If you want to work with actuators in the project, then you need to add this dependency in the pom.xml. Whenever you add this dependency, by default, it will provide health endpoint. So by default, you can access health endpoint when you go for actuator. But if you want to expose other endpoints also, then you need to write these properties in the pom.xml. Management.endpoints.web.exposure.include is equal to star. I want to expose all the 13 actuator endpoints like beans, config props, URL mappings, info, health, trace, metrics, environment, loggers. Like that, there are 13 endpoints available. You can expose all the 13 endpoints by using this property. Suppose if you don't want to expose any property, then you can go for exclude. Exclude is equal to beans. What is the meaning of that? I don't want to expose that endpoint. And we have a special endpoint here, which is called shutdown. What is the meaning of shutdown? If you want to stop the server by sending a request, I want to send a request to stop the application. For that, we have a shutdown endpoint. By default, the shutdown endpoint is disabled. Now I want to enable that shutdown endpoint. I want to enable that shutdown endpoint. Shutdown is a special endpoint which is used to stop the server. It is mapped to post request. All the other actuator endpoints are mapped to get request. All the other actuator endpoints mapped to get request. We need to send a get request directly from the browser. We can send the get request, but shutdown is mapped to post request. How to send a post request? From the postman. We need to use postman tool in order to send a post request. Very good. Then I have given the link to watch the video for interview questions. Did you get the chance to go through that? Anybody gone through that? So there are 100 plus questions available related to Spring Boot and microservices, which are interview questions. In most of the companies, they are going to ask those questions. The questions and answers we have given in this video. So please go through that video. Good. Assignment, able to complete. Email sending, working. Still not working. How you are getting the password? When you want to send the email, you need to configure your password in the application. How do you are getting that password? In the Google, you need to generate the app password for the authentication. So that is the only one tricky point. If you get that app password, then complete code available in the internet. So we need to use a Java mail sender to send the email. So there are two types of messages available: simple message available, my message available. If you want to send a plain text, simple message is sufficient. If you want to send formatted body with the attachment, then you need to go for my message. Good. Next, let's go to our application. MVC app is available. Book app is there. Guys, see here, we developed our book application. Let me refresh this. Let me run this application. Run as boot application. Book application started. We already developed it. Let's access this controller class methods. First one, what is that one, guys? Index. Okay, so let me go and access this. Localhost colon 8080/index. So I'm able to access our application, view books, the records which are available, able to display. Now add new book, the form is loading. Whenever we are sending a request for the index URL, when we are sending the request for the index URL, what we are doing here, we are using model and view object. Okay, in that model and view, we are adding our object and we are setting the view name. So can we change the return type to string also? Can we change the return type to the string? Yes. How to change the return type to the string? String. When I change the return type to the string, then how to send the data? By using model. Okay, so here view name, instead of returning the model and view object, now I will return string like this. Okay, import this model object, Spring UI model, model dot add object or model dot add attribute will be available. Okay, so how to set the data to the, how to send the data to the UI now? By using model dot add attribute with a key comma value. So earlier we have taken model and view as a return type. For that we are setting the object in the form of key and value, and we are setting the view name. Now in the latest style of coding, directly we are able to add the data to the model. Instead of taking model and view as a return type, I'm taking string as a return type. What is that string represents? View name. What is the view page that you want to return? Okay, let me stop the server and restart it. Let us see, is it working as expected or not? Right click, run as boot app. Yep, a new book. Page is loading as expected. Let me add one book, React. Save it. Book saved. Now the React book is added in the database. Here guys, we are taking model object as a parameter and we are adding the data to the model by using add attribute method. Add attribute method. Instead of this, we can do like this also. What I want to send to the UI, I want to send book object to the UI. So this book object I want to send to the UI. For this, we can use one annotation called model attribute. So earlier I have taken model as a parameter and I have used a method called model dot add attribute key comma value. What is the meaning of model dot add attribute? I want to add the data to the model object. That model object we can access in the view page. So instead of we are adding like this, I am directly using model attribute annotation. Okay. So I'm taking book object as a parameter. This is my index method. Let me stop the server and start it again. Now I changed my method. Earlier I have taken model as a parameter. For that model, I'm using add attribute method to set the data so that whatever the data is available in the model, we can access that data in the UI. Okay. Now, instead of setting that to the method, I am directly taking object as a parameter and I am using model attribute annotation. Who will call this method, guys? Programmer will be calling this method, or dispatcher servlet will be calling this method. Dispatcher servlet is calling this method. Refresh, right click, run as boot app. Good. Now let's call this add new book method. Am I able to load the book now? So tell me, what is the purpose of model attribute annotation? What is the purpose of a model? That means this line of code, is the same. So if you don't want to use model.add attribute method to set the data to the model, you can directly set the data by using model attribute annotation. Okay. So whenever I'm sending a get request, add a new book, when I click on this button, the request will go to this index method. When I click on this button, request will go to index method. In the index method, what is the parameter? Book object is a parameter. So now here dispatcher servlet is going to call this index method by passing book object as a parameter. Dispatcher servlet will call index method by passing book object as a parameter. So whenever this index method is called, is there any form available to pass the object? Whenever I click on this button, any form is available? No, it is just a get request. That means dispatcher servlet will pass empty book object to the index method. That empty book object will go to the UI by using this model attribute. Okay. Earlier what we have done, model dot add attribute, key comma value. I'm setting the data manually, but now I am using directly annotation. When I use this annotation here, whatever the book object is coming to the index method will go to the UI page, so that I can do form binding by using this empty object. Model attribute is an annotation which is used to map our object to the model so that we can access that data in the UI page. Either you can write like this or you can write like this also. Got it? So in the interview, they will ask, what is model and view? What is model? What is model attribute? All are used for same purpose. Here, this is a class. Model and view is a class. Model is a interface. Model attribute, this is a annotation. Okay, good guys. So model and view is a class. This is used to send the data, not your class. Yeah. Model and view, this is a class which is used to send the data from controller to UI. Can you call her once? Good. Now, so we have model and view class is available here. What is the purpose of this model and view class? What is the purpose of model and view class? It is used to send the data from controller to UI in the form of key and value. Directly, you can create the object for this class. You can set the data in the form of key and value, and you can set the view name you can return. Suppose I don't want to go with that class. I want to go with a interface called model. My method will not return this object. My method will return the string. When your method is returning the string, you can take model as a parameter for the method. Then you can set the attributes by using key and value, and you can return the view name. I don't want to use this interface also. I don't want to use this class, but still I want to send the data to the UI. How can we do that? By using annotation @model attribute annotation. So when this method is called, dispatcher servlet will pass book object as a parameter. That parameter I'm giving as a model attribute. This is the key. This is the object. So with this key, you can access that object in the UI page. Go to index.html. I am using that key here. th:\object. What is the meaning of th:\object? What is the meaning of th:\object? th:\object means form binding. So controller is sending book object as a model attribute. That model attribute I am accessing by using the key. I am mapping to the form. Form binding is available. What is the meaning of form binding? What is the meaning of form binding? Whenever you submit the form data will be stored to the UI. Form data will be stored to the object. Whenever you submit the form, your form data will be stored into book object. That book object we are taking as a parameter for the method. Book object we are taking as a parameter. Good. So model attribute, we can send the data to the UI. We can add the data to the model object. Perfect. You can go with model and view, or you can go with model, or you can go with model attribute also. Perfect. Next one, we can remove this piece of code now. It's not required because directly we are adding here. You no need to send the empty object now. This method itself is getting the empty object as a parameter. Very good. Next one, guys, we have used application dot properties file as of now. Okay, so there is a file called application dot properties file. Whenever you create a boot application, by default we are getting application dot properties file. If you want to configure anything like data source properties, view resolver properties, right, and actuator properties, Hibernate properties, everything we are configuring in the application dot properties file. That is the default file we are getting for our Spring Boot application. That is the default file we are getting for Spring Boot application. So application properties file, what is the purpose of this file, guys? It is used to configure properties in the key value format. It is used to configure the properties in the key value format. For example, I want to configure server port. How do we configure? Server dot port is equal to 8081. So if you want to configure some properties in your application like database properties, SMTP properties, application messages, we are going to configure by using server dot port. It is in the key value format. If you observe the data source properties, can you see here? Can you read this property once? Can you read the property once? Spring dot data source dot username. Spring dot data source dot username. Can you read the second property? Spring dot data source dot password. Third property, spring dot data source dot URL. Is there any repeated keywords? How many keywords are repeated? Spring dot data source is a common, right? Spring dot data source username, spring dot data source password, spring dot data source URL, spring dot, again spring is repeated, again spring is 5 times we are writing the spring keyword, which is a duplicated keyword, right? So if you go for this properties file, readability is not good. The properties file readability is not good. It is representing data in the key and value format. To overcome this problem, nowadays people are using YML. People are not using the properties file. People are using YML file. Another reason is properties file supported by only Java. In the other programming languages, properties file will not be available. It is supported by only Java. whereas YML file supported by other languages also. Properties file is specific to only Java. YML file is universal. So Python people will support for YML. .NET will support for YML. Even Kubernetes, Ansible, DevOps tools also will support for the YML configuration. Nowadays, people are using YML configuration instead of properties configuration. YML file is very simple and it is lightweight when compared with the properties file, and YML file will improve readability of our configuration. So properties file readability is not good, whereas YML file readability will be good when compared with the properties file. So application.properties file, it is created by default in the Spring Boot. By default, this file will be created. By default, this file will be created when we create boot application. Okay, it is used to configure properties in the key and value format. Server.port is equal to 8081. Suppose I want to configure data source URL. How I will do that? Spring.datasource.url, spring.datasource.username. Similarly, spring.datasource.password, spring.datasource.password. Like this we are configuring. So properties file readability is not good. Readability is not good in properties file. Readability is not good in the properties file. And another problem with the properties file supported only in Java. Properties file supported only in the Java, and the readability is not good when you go for the properties file. To overcome the problems of this properties file, Spring Boot supporting for YML also. You can use either properties file or you can use YML. It's up to you. You can use both also, no problem. You can keep properties file plus YML file also in your project. There is no problem. If you want, you can use only properties file. If you want, you can use only YML. Now, to overcome problems of properties file, boot supporting YML file. Okay, earlier people used to work with only application.properties file. By default, this file will be created when we create boot application. By default, this file will be created when we create boot application. It is used to configure properties in the key value format. Server port 8081 like this. Key value. Readability is not good in the properties file because spring data source, it is repeated. Properties file supported only in the Java. So to overcome problems of the properties file, boot supporting YML file. So now we are going for application.yml file. YML stands for yet another markup language. What is YML? Yet another markup language. YML stands for yet another markup language. It is used to represent the data in the hierarchical format. Properties file will represent in the form of key value. YML represents data in hierarchical format. So it will improve readability of the data. It will improve readability of our data. Whatever the data that you are writing in the YML, it is going to improve readability of data, and YML is universal format for the configuration. Not only in the Java, other technologies, other languages also supporting for the YML. YML files are universal. YML files are universal. What is the meaning of universal? Supported by multiple technologies, not only by Java, supported by multiple technologies. Okay, good. YML stands for yet another markup language, represents data in the hierarchical format. It will improve readability of our data. YML files are universal they are supported by multiple technologies. How YML file will represent the data? You see here in the YML file, in YML files, indentation is very important. Okay, what is that, guys? Indentation is very important because we are going to represent the data in the hierarchical format. So when you are representing data in the hierarchical format, we need to take care of indentation. Indentation is very important when you go for YML. What is the meaning of indentation? Let's understand. Here, server.port is available. How we are representing server port in the properties file? Server.port. In the YML, server space port. Okay. Inside the server, server is one key. Inside that port is available. In the properties file, we are writing server.port. When you go for the YML, inside the server, we are writing the port. Before the port, some space is available. That space is called indentation. The indentation is very important when we are working with the YML files in the project. If you don't write this space here, Spring Boot will understand server is one property, port is another property. Both are not two different properties. Port is belongs to server. So we need to write server colon port. Like this we need to write it. So let me do the comparison now. Okay. So here, let me take properties file. This side, let me take YML file. So this side I'm taking the properties file. This side I'm taking the YML file. How we are going to write the configuration in the properties file and YML file. So in the properties file, if you want to represent the server port, how do we do that? Server port is equal to some 9090. So in the properties file, we will represent like this 9090 port number by using server.port. Same thing, if you want to represent in the YML, you need to write server colon enter space then port colon space 9090. Are you getting my point? So server and port both are starting on the same line, or there is some space for the port. Space for the port. That space represents port is a child of the server. Port is a child of the server. Port belongs to server. That is called indentation. That spacing is very important when you go for the YML. If you don't write this space right, what will happen? Server will become one property, port will become another property, but both are not separate. Port belongs to server. So let's give some space like this. So that represents port belongs to server, which is indentation. Indentation spacing. Now, I want to configure data source properties in the properties file. How do we configure data source properties here? Spring dot data source dot URL is equal to some data. I'm not writing the actual URL, no space. Spring dot data source dot URL. Then spring dot data source dot username. Then spring dot data source dot password. So like this, we are going to write data source properties in the properties file. So what is the problem if I write like this? Spring dot data source, every time I need to read that spring dot data source, spring dot data source. So here readability is not good. Readability is not good. So to avoid this problem, in the Spring Boot, YML files are there, right? In the YML files, we will write like this. Spring colon. Inside the Spring, we have data source colon. Inside the data source, we have our URL colon then username colon, then password. How many times we are writing Spring and data source? Only. Now, which one is having readability? YML, Spring data source. Inside the Spring, data source available. Inside the data source, URL, username, password. So this is representing data in the form of key and value format. This is representing the data in the hierarchical format. Properties file will represent the data in the key value format, whereas YML file will represent the data in the hierarchical format. Okay. Now, I want to configure view resolver in the properties file. You know view resolver configuration, right? How to configure view resolver? Come on, how to write the view resolver? Spring.mvc.view.prefix. Then spring.mvc.view.suffix. Getting my point? So Spring already repeated 3 times here. Again, it is repeated 2 times here. So Spring is repeated multiple times. But if I want to do the same configuration in the YML, Spring is already available. Inside the Spring, data source is available. Along with that, we can write MVC. Okay. Inside the MVC, we can write view. Inside the MVC, we can write view. Inside the view, we have prefix and we have suffix. Okay. How many times the Spring is available? Only one time. Data source is one child for the Spring. MVC is one child for the Spring. View is available for the view. Prefix is one child. Suffix is one child. So this is called hierarchical representation. Nowadays in the industry, configuration will be available like this. Okay. So earlier people used to work with the properties file, but now people are working with the YML. What is the difference between properties file and YML file, guys? What is the difference between properties file and YML file? What is the difference between properties file and YML file? Properties file will represent the data. Properties file will represent the data in the key value format. It is representing the data in the key value format, whereas YML file representing the data in the hierarchical format. Okay. So here will be represented in the key value directly, their hierarchical format. In the properties file, readability is not good, whereas in the YML, readability is good. Okay. Readability is not good in the properties file. In the YML file, readability is available. Getting my point? And next one, properties file supported by only Java. What about the other languages? Other languages are not going to support for the properties file. Okay. YML file supported by other languages. You know, people comes to DevOps course. Mostly non-IT people will come for the DevOps. They feel that programming will not be available in the DevOps. So the people who completed their BTech 1 year back, 2 years back, those people will go for programming jobs like Python, Java, .NET, something like that. If anybody who is having 4 years gap, 5 years gap, they have done some non-IT job, BPO or some business or whatever it is. Now they want to enter into the IT. So the people who are having 4 years gap or 5 years gap, for them, understanding programming is difficult. For them, understanding programming is difficult. That's why those people will go for DevOps. In the DevOps also, they will feel programming is there. What programming? YML programming. In the DevOps, YML will be available. So if you want to become a DevOps engineer, then you need to learn the YML. They feel that YML is also difficult. Sir, you told that before joining the DevOps, programming is not required, but every day you are writing some programming in the DevOps also. That is called YML programming. Is it difficult? Let me show you. The people who are coming to the DevOps, they will ask this question. Sir, you told that before joining the course, programming is not there. After we paid the fees, you are writing the programming in the DevOps. That is not programming. That is just configuration. That is a YML configuration. So DevOps people should know the YML configuration. Let me show you. My DevOps batch is running. In this DevOps batch, what is this software, guys? Ansible. Go to the Ansible. What is this in the Ansible? Another markup language. Okay. What is this format? Hierarchical format. YML file we are writing. What is this format? YML. We will teach them 3-4 days about the YML. We will teach YML file for the 3-4 days. Then we will teach the DevOps concepts, because in the DevOps, there is a tool called Ansible tool is available. Ansible is used for the configuration management. In the Ansible, we will write the playbooks. To write the playbook in the Ansible, we will use YML. So they will feel that this is programming. This is not programming. This is just a configuration. Indentation spaces are available. Okay. Now come down. This is a playbook. It is available in the Ansible. So this playbook is used to host one HTML website in the Linux machine. So this is configuration management in the DevOps by using Ansible. Now, what is this? What is this, guys? YML. This is why. Is it programming? If you know Java, working with the DevOps is very, very, very easy. Every Java developer can become the DevOps engineer also. If you are working on the Java development part, within 10-15 days, you can learn the DevOps. Within 10-15 days, you can learn the DevOps. And that too, in our JRTP, 80% of the DevOps also will be covered. If you come for the DevOps, you will learn Maven, GitHub, Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes. 4 months of time. Fees is 18,000 for DevOps. What you are going to learn in the DevOps? YML, Maven, GitHub, Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, Linux. Then you can work as a DevOps engineer. So DevOps engineer is responsible for build and deployment. Whatever the code is done by the developers, that code we need to build and we need to deploy. That is Jujube for the Java developers. Is it difficult? We are writing the code. Is it difficult to deploy that code in the server? No. So that is the reason nowadays in the industry, companies are expecting Java developers to work on the DevOps also. Java developers to work on the cloud also. In the company, they feel that Java developer means all-rounder. He can do anything. So Java developer means you can write the code, you can test that code, you can build that code, you can deploy that code, you can deliver that code. So that is full stack. End to end we can manage. End to end we can manage. In my company, from last 3 years, I'm working on the DevOps with AWS also. For our project, there is no separate DevOps team. Our team members, as a Java developer, we need to write the code. We need to test. We are working as a developers. We are working as a testers. We are working as a DevOps engineers. We are working as Linux admin. We are working as AWS cloud engineer also. These are the 5 roles we are playing in the company. So that is called independent developer. Everything, whatever is required for the project, we need to do everything for that. Especially this kind of culture will be there in the product-based companies. If you go for service-based company, separated team will be there for everything. So development will done by one team, cloud will be managed by another team, deployment will done by one team, testing will done by another team. Why? Because company has to show these many teams to the client, then client will give the more money. Okay. But in the product-based company, nobody will give the money. So everyone should do everything in the project. So if you work in the startup companies as well as in the product-based companies, you will become very strong in the technology. You will work with multiple technologies. Now, my profile, if you see my resume, you will get shocked. 10 technologies will be there in the resume. So Java, Spring Boot, microservices, Linux, DevOps, AWS, testing, Selenium, so many things will be Linux administration, shell scripting, Lot of skills will be there. That is what industry is expecting from a person. Tomorrow, if there is no development, then I will work on the testing. If there is no testing, I will work on the DevOps. If nothing is there, I will work on the cloud platform. So you need to have multiple skills in your hand. Then you can survive in the industry. Companies are not looking only for Java developer. Java developer with a other skill set also. That other skill set, DevOps and AWS. Getting my point? If you see in my DevOps batch, 300 to 400 people will be available. My DevOps batch strength, minimum 200, maximum 300 to 400. Who are those people? Previous batch, project batch students, previous batch Spring Boot students. Now they are coming to the DevOps course also. The reason, in the company, they are getting such kind of work. Sir, 3 years in 2020, 2019, 18, the people who attended our trainings in Spring Boot microservices and project, they are working in the company. Now they became team leads. Some people became team leads now who got the job in 18, 19, 20. Now those people getting the work on the AWS cloud and the DevOps also. Now they're coming back to the training to upskill themselves as cloud and DevOps operations. So you need to plan. Some people may ask, sir, after Spring Boot microservice is completed, what I have to learn? Okay. So the suggestion, after Spring Boot microservices, you need to learn DevOps tools, DevOps operations, AWS cloud. That will be added advantage for your career. Okay. Yesterday, I got one message from a candidate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He got 9 offer letters. He's from JRTP batch 21. He got 9 offer letters. The highest package he got 20 lakhs. Yeah, let me show you his message. Yesterday he sent a message to me. 9 offer letters he got. Who told that there is a recession in the market? If there is a recession, he will get 9 offer letters. As I told you already, recession is not there. Skilled people are not there in the market. Yeah, I will prove that. This will give you motivation to do more hard work, to prepare well, so that you can start giving the interviews. Yeah, now can you see this message? Lokesh, student of JRTP 21 batch, thank you for services to our community. Following offers: CGI 16 lakhs, HCL, KPMG, BNP, Capgemini, AT&T, Verakil, Tavant, Amdos, 20 lakhs package. Experience 4 years, current CTC 11.5. So he got 20 lakhs package. Java microservices and Angular. He is getting joined in the February. He got the offer letters and he is joining in the February. He attended interview with the Java microservices and Angular. So see here how many offer letters he got. So now can you say market is not good? Can you say that? Recession in the market? What is not there? Skilled people are not there. So they are expecting all-rounders. So you need to learn Spring Boot microservices and you need to learn front-end development and you need to learn some cloud knowledge with the DevOps tools so that your resume will have good weightage in the market. Getting my point? Cool. Fine. So we are trying to understand what is properties file and what is YML file. What is properties file and what is YML file, guys? What is properties file and what is YML file? Properties file is used to configure some properties like database properties, SMTP properties, actuator properties, application messages. You can configure by using properties file. What is the problem with the properties file? What is the problem with the properties file? It is supporting the data in the form of key and value. Readability is not good. readability is not good, and it's supported only by Java. To overcome these problems, what we are going to do? We are going to use YML file. YML stands for yet another markup language. YML file will represent the data in the hierarchical format. It will represent the data in the hierarchical format. Readability will be improved when you go for YML. And YML is universal, not only for Java, other languages also will support for the YML. When you go for YML, one important point is indentation. Indentation. What is the meaning of indentation? Spacing. Whenever you are writing the properties, that spacing is very, very, very important. Are you clear? Good. Now, let's see here. Server.port I am writing. It is in the single line server.port as a key and value. But if you see here, server.port, how we are writing? How we are writing that server port? Hierarchical format. Inside the server, port is available. Here we are writing Spring data source URL is available. But how we are writing here? With indentation space. Spring inside that data source. Inside the data source, URL, username, password. When you go for view resolver, here we are writing spring.mvc.view.prefix. But here what we are doing? Inside the Spring, MVC is available. Inside the MVC, view is available. Inside the view, prefix available and suffix is also available. Okay. Now, let's go to our project. Already, we are having properties file. Inside that properties file, data source available, JPA available, show SQL, DDL auto. Now, I want to convert these properties into YML. Okay. If you are using Spring Toolsuite IDE, it is very easy. If you are using Spring Toolsuite IDE, it is very easy. How can we do that? Right click on the properties file. Can you see one option? What is that option, guys? Convert properties file to YML. So if you already have the properties file, you can convert that format to YML in the Spring Toolsuite IDE. If you go for Eclipse or IntelliJ, this option will not be available. Only in the Toolsuite IDE, we have this option. I have the file already in the properties. Now I want to convert into YML. Okay. So go to your project, right click on the properties file. This is my properties file, guys. You see this properties file. My properties are available in this format, key value format. Close this file. Right click, convert properties to YML. Now, so this property is converted to this format. Click on OK. Now, properties file is converted to YML file. Now look at this. Whatever the configuration we have in the properties earlier, that is converted to YML format. Now you read it, how beautiful it is. Earlier in the properties file, everything is in the single line. Spring repeated 4 times, 3 times, but now Spring available only 1 time. Inside the Spring, data source. Inside the data source, password, URL and username is available. Inside the data source, these are the 3 childs available. So here space is available, indent space. Data source is available inside the Spring. Suppose if I write like this, what will happen? Spring is separate, data source is separate. They are separate or they are not separate? They are not separate. Okay, we need to give that indent spacing. For example, let's go to our JSP app. Properties file is available. Spring.mvc.view.prefix. Remove this. Now, convert these properties to YML. Nothing is available in the YML. Now I want to write view resolver in the YML. How do we write it? Spring.mvc.view. If you don't type it completely, auto suggestions are coming, right? When I start typing spring.mvc.view.prefix, okay, click enter. Then what happened? When I click enter, what happened? It adjusted with the YML syntax. So that auto suggestion is available. Now see here. If you are not able to write proper syntax with the spacing na, you no need to worry about that. You just start typing spring dot something like data source dot username or URL. Okay, spring dot data source dot username. If I type like this, what happen? Automatically it is adjusted to the YML syntax. Now I want to configure view resolver here. Can you tell me how to configure view resolver with YML syntax? Spring dot MVC dot view dot prefix. Enter. Now I want suffix. Just type the suffix. So what is our prefix? Slash views. What is our suffix? Dot JS. Before the value, colon and value. Here also space is available. That indentation spacing is very important when we are working with the YML. Whenever you convert your properties file to the YML file, just do the Maven update. Otherwise, YML will not be loaded by default. You just do the Maven update so that YML file will be loaded. Okay. So I hope you got the clarity. What is the difference between properties file and YML file in the Spring Boot? What is the difference between properties file and YML file in the Spring Boot? Come on. Properties file will represent the data in the key value format. YML file will represent the data in the hierarchical format. Properties file and YML file. Properties file supported by only Java, whereas YML file supported by other languages also. Supported by other languages also. When you go for YML file, the indent spacing is very, very, very important. Good. Fine. Guys, with this, we completed our discussion related to Spring Web MVC. So we completed core Spring Basics, 4 modules we completed so far, right? What are those 4 modules we learned? Spring Introduction, Spring Framework, Spring Basics. What is Spring? What is IOC container? What is dependency injection? How to develop application? What are the modules available? What is the purpose of each module in the Spring? We learned. Then we discussed about Spring Core module, which is very, very, very important, which is the fundamental module of our Spring framework. Without core, there is no Spring, right? The fundamental concepts of the Spring providing by core module, like dependency injection, IOC container, bean lifecycle, bean scope, everything is part of core module. Then after core module, we learnt about Spring Data JPA. Spring Data JPA. What is this Spring Data JPA? What is the Spring Data JPA? Spring Data JPA is used for persistence layer development. It is used for persistence layer development. Instead of developing the code by using JDBC or Spring JDBC or Hibernate or ORM, we are going for Spring Data JPA. What is the benefit we are getting? What is the benefit we are getting with the Spring Data JPA? You no need to write the common logics in the persistence layer. You no need to write the common logics in the persistence layer. Data JPA providing repositories. So you can use predefined methods, or you can write custom queries, or you can go with find by methods also to deal with the DB operations using Data JPA. And next one, we learnt about Spring Web MVC. So it is a module in the Spring framework which is used to develop web applications. It is a module which is used to develop web applications, and it is providing embedded server concept. What is the meaning of embedded server? Default server. So you no need to deploy your application to separate server. You no need to deploy your application to separate server. Embedded servers are 3: Tomcat, Jetty, Netty. By default, we are getting Tomcat. Okay, can I change to the Jetty also? Yes, we can change to the Jetty server as well. What changes are required to change from Tomcat to Jetty? Exclude the Tomcat dependency and include Jetty dependency. Okay, we can deploy our application to Jetty server also. And we are able to use Timeleaf to develop our web application. We can use a Timeleaf as a presentation, or we can use JSP as a presentation. Good. If you want to go for Timeleaf, Timeleaf starter will be available. If you want to go with the JSP, embedded Jasper dependency will be available. Good. Fine. Now I want to give one task assignment. Just you need to develop one form, name, email, gender, course, timings. Okay, good. Name, it is a text field, guys. It's basically a student registration form. Name is a text field. Email, also a text field. Gender, radio button. Okay, course is a drop down. Course is a drop down, and timings checkbox. Timings checkbox. Morning, afternoon, evening. The twist is the course values in the drop down should come from the database. Okay, these are timings also should come from the database. It's not hard-coded data in the HTML. So courses you need to maintain in a separated table in the database. So the database data you need to display in the drop down. Okay, good. Gender and gender you can hard code because only two values, right? You no need to maintain separated table only for the gender. But courses timings we need to get it from the database table. Then we should have submit button. Okay. Student registration. Forget about the storing in the database. That is different. At least you should be able to submit the form. Then data should come to your controller. So here gender is a radio button. Course is a drop down. Timings is checkbox. When I say checkboxes, student can select multiple checkboxes also. They can select morning, or they can select afternoon, or they can select evening. Some people either morning, evening is fine for them. They will select both. One course they will select in the drop down. Timings they can select multiple checkboxes. So here these courses which are displaying in the drop down, I want to display Java, Python, DevOps, AWS. 4 values should come in the drop down. Those 4 values should come from the database table. Those 4 values should come from the database. It's not hard-coded data. Database data we need to get from the database. The drop-down data we need to get from the database. That means in the database, there should be one table called course table, which will contain the course names. You create a table, you insert some data in the table manually. And there will be one more table called timings table will be available, which will contain 3 records: morning, afternoon, evening. Whenever you execute this application, when you go for the registration page, this drop down should contain the course names available in the database table, and timings should contain the 3 checkboxes which are available in the database table. When you click on the submit button, all this data go to controller. There you can insert in the database also. How many tables are required total? three tables are required. One is a course table, second one is timings table, third one is student table. In the student table, form data will be submitted. But in order to submit the form, first we need to display the courses in the drop down, timings in the checkboxes. So total 3 tables are required in order to develop this application. Are you able to follow me? Can you try this? This is the task for today. Every day I'm giving one task. If you practice all these assignments properly, definitely you will get the job before our JRTP is going to complete. So I'm showing the proofs also, how people are getting the jobs, how much package there in the whole Amirpet. Other institute students packages will be 3 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs, 4 lakhs maximum. They will go with the fresher jobs. But only Ashok IT students are getting about 20 lakhs package. The reason, our content is not at the fresher level. Our people are trying with 3 to 4 years of experience. That much subject we are learning. So after learning is SBMS and JRTP, going with the fresher does not make any sense because this much content is not required for the fresher first of all. So whatever we are learning, this is 3 to 4 years experience level content. With this content, you can crack experienced interview. Minimum target 15 lakhs package, maximum 25. Already people has proven that they are getting 20, 22, 23 lakhs packages also. Some people are with the fake experience, they are getting 20 lakhs package. Why don't you get that? Have you seen in the other institute any student with 20 lakhs package? They will go as a fresher. Why? Because they will not teach Spring Boot microservices. They will not teach JRTP in the Java full stack. But only in our institute, Java full stack contain these courses. Because market condition is difficult now. If you want to get the job, you need to have the good skill set. You need to have project development skill. Then only they will take you. So to develop the project, this is Spring Boot microservice, tools, cloud, DevOps, everything is required. So plan that properly, take it seriously and work on that. So today, this is the task. Tomorrow, all of you should bring the laptops to the class. I want to see all the assignments that you have developed. So JPA assignments are there, MVC assignments are available. In the JPA, I have given around 9 assignments. In the MVC, I have given 5 assignments. So tomorrow, I will check that assignment, how much you are completed. You bring your laptop. If you are facing any problem, I will help you to solve that problem. So tomorrow we will sit here and we will do the practice. So for tomorrow's class, all of you bring your laptop. Tomorrow we will work on that assignment part. If you already completed, I will check it. If you are not able to complete, if you are facing any problem, I will help you to solve that problem. So tomorrow is a practical class. I want you to complete all the 14 or 15 assignments I have given as of now. Going forward, you will get more assignments because we are going to start REST API. Before going to REST API, you need to be clear with all this development, whatever that we learned so far. Once you go for REST API, that is a different story. UI pages will not be available. This is the last UI page you are going to see in our course. In the Spring Boot microservices, this is the last UI page you are going to see. From next week, UI pages will not be available. Why? Only JSON will be available. B2B communication. Web services we are going to develop from the next week. When you go for web services, one project will communicate with the another project by using only JSON, not with the UI. So this is the last UI page you are going to develop. So in the end of the Spring Boot, one UI page will come, but not on the HTML, not on the TimeLeaf. That will be in the Angular. I will show you Spring Boot with Angular integration. At that time, after 45 days, you are going to develop the UI. Today is the last UI page for our course. I'm not going to develop any UI pages in the upcoming classes because we are going for microservices development. Microservices nothing but completely backend API, only business logic, no presentation logic. Everything will be managed by using JSON. Good, fine. Sir, we don't know JSON. No problem. I will tell you what is JSON, how to work with that JSON, how to develop REST API, how to develop web services, how to develop microservices, what is microservices architecture. Next 30 days, we are going to work with the microservices part. Okay, before going to start our REST API development, I want you to complete all the assignments I have given so far. So today, please spend time, minimum 8 hours or 10 hours. Try to complete the task, whatever I have given. Yeah, assignment, let me update it. Yeah, 5 assignments in the MVC, 9 assignments in the JPA. Total 14 assignments. You need to submit your assignments tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow chutti, huh? If you don't come to the class, who will be the loser? You, right? Remember. That will happen. When we tell that assignment checking, people will not come to the class. We'll cover that, sir. Request scope means for every request bean object will be created. Earlier singleton means what happens? Only one object will be created. Prototype means every time new object. Request scope, session scope, nothing but for every request. Suppose if your controller class scope is request, whenever a request comes to the controller, every time new object will be created. Okay. Session scope means whenever the application started, for every user, one session object will be created. Okay. Develop student registration form with below fields. Okay. What is the first field? Name. Name is a text field. Then email. Guys, tomorrow, whoever will submit the assignment, for them, I will arrange a interview in the next week. We got one company for the fresher interview, Java people. Whoever is completed this assignment, they will have the interview in the next week as a Java fresher. If you want to attend the fresher interview, then you can participate in that drive. Okay, good. They will give you 3.5 lakhs package as a fresher. Name, email, gender. Whoever completed the assignment, all the programs, 14 programs, those people are eligible for that drive. Name, email, gender, course, it is a drop down. From where we need to get the drop down data? Database, timings, checkboxes. Okay. Course detail, course names and timings should come from DB table. Okay. Read the requirement. Develop student registration form with below fields: name, email, gender, course, timings. Gender is a radio button. Gender values you can hard code, no problem, because they will not change in the future. But course values will change in the future. That's why get it from the database. Timings are the checkboxes. They will also change in the future. Get it from the database. Course names and timings should come from DB tables. So total 3 tables are required to develop this application. One table for storing the course data, one table for storing the timings data, one table to store the student data. Okay. Web MVC assignments. Perfect. This is the screen. You can take the screenshot. Someone take the screenshot and post in the group, in the offline group. Online people, take the screenshot and share in the group. That is what we need to develop today. This is a task for you. Remember, whoever completed the task, those people are eligible for the drive. Share in WhatsApp group. Our batch group is there, right? You share in that. Joins, yes, we will learn the joins also. Association mapping we have not discussed. I told you we will discuss that. Yes. Shared in the group. Anyone posted? We got in the online group, offline. Someone post in the offline group. Yep. So all of you guys, please today you sit here and you work on this task. All of you complete your breakfast, then bring your laptop, sit here. Today, this class is also free. You can do the practice here. From now onwards, this classroom is free till evening, till 3 o'clock. You can sit here and you can do the practice. I will be available here. If you get any doubt, I will help you to solve that. For tomorrow's class also, bring your laptop. If you get stuck somewhere, I will help you to solve the problem. Tomorrow, practicals will be available. Online people, tomorrow all of you join from the laptop and start developing these assignments. If you stuck somewhere, I will help you for the online students also tomorrow. Tomorrow is our lab session. Got it? Thank you guys. I'm stopping for now. We'll meet in the tomorrow session. Thank you.